Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NRG series. I'm Mason Clark, joined by Abe Stein, and we're here in Elmhurst, Illinois this weekend to do our Team 10K, our first paper event of the year, Abe. I'm so excited. We're doing Standard, Modern, and Legacy. Are you excited for some Magic action?
Oh yeah, I mean there's a little bit to love from everywhere. We got a standard format that we've seen really explored in the last few months with some new cards also making their way through. We've got a modern format that we're about to come up on RCQ season 4. A lot of innovation, room for innovation there, and a legacy format that, I mean, who doesn't love a little bit of the most powerful stuff that lets you do?
Yeah, it's super exciting. I got to commentate a Legacy event recently in Europe, and it was so cool to see, just how the format's changed. There's been a lot of bannings and shakeup over the last couple of years in the format, and a lot of, Universes Beyonds and Commander products that have added some cool new cards. So I'm excited to see that later in the day today. But first, let's talk about our next event before we head on out to our feature match area to start round number 1, as we are doing a couple events in paper this year, traveling around doing these bigger cons, doing more than just Magic. As you can see in your stream, we got Magic, Flesh and Blood, Riftbound, Lorcana, One Piece Digimon. Come on down. We're going to be in Indianapolis May 8th through the 10th. It's going to be awesome. It's called PropCon, nrgevents.gg to go check it out online. And we're excited to have that here. We're going to have another big 10K Magic event, another big Riftbound event. If you're a big Riftbound fan, we'll be streaming that one tomorrow, and so much more. So make sure to consider coming out to that May 8th through the 10th. But let's see if we can head on down to our feature match area and start round number 1 with some standard action.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to start with Derek Davis against Julian Eisenbrown. Some Spellementals against Azorius Momo. Mason, what do you think of these matches we have? Looks like Momo starting with a drum.
Yeah, this Momo deck kind of the new hotness, popped up on Magic Online about 2 weeks ago. And it's really, like a mono white deck typically, although some players have branched out to Azorius for cards like Quantum Riddler. But, playing some pretty good efficient creatures, abusing Momo as sort of a Llanowar elf type creature. And then, against the Spellementals deck, they're pretty good at picking apart little things. They, Sunderflock and Unsun and do a lot of, negative work towards stepping your hand out. But this deck, especially post-board, has some really strong cards like High Noon and Rest in Peace that can be backbreaking.
Yeah, and I mean, talking exactly on that, the Momo deck starting with Momo into it's creating a copy here. Derek Davis opting to, the Spellementals deck really looking to put a lot of spells in the graveyard to start getting that cost reduction going. As you see, Derek casting the Sleight of Hand too, but opting, I think, that Sleight of Hand in the opener to leave open the Burst Lightning, knowing what the matchup's going to be about here from the Momo deck. As Derek plays a second land and passes back to Julian.
Yeah, and that Momo onto the drum, right? Playing that Sage, that's what I meant a little bit about like the explosive Momo abuse that this deck can kind of do. But also just play some pretty good white cards. Quantum Riddler is typically what you're seeing here from the Azorius side of things. That's a card that, even the war cost one less off of Momo. Also gives you access to some sideboard cards, can be pretty good. But sort of just passing the turn here, one of the interesting things about these Momo decks, Abe, is that there isn't like a conformed list. So a card like Ape Interrupter is something that might be on Derek Davis's mind here. As it does, work pretty well with Momo. It's a pretty powerful thing. You're holding up 3 mana. There's a lot to be potentially happening, but it looks like nothing for Julian instead.
Yeah, Julian just having the Sage, I mean, attack for 6, gaining 6 life is not nothing. But finding our first blue source here, Julian taking a second to think, perhaps having that Quantum Riddler looks like in hand. But, the Spellementals deck, we've got Hearth Elemental on Derek's side of the board on turn 3, which is really exactly what the deck's looking to do. So both these decks firing all cylinders as Julian's drawing 2 to this Quantum Riddler here, using that drum for mana. We'll see who he's going to cast.
Yeah, and it makes a little bit of sense, right? That like we've got a lot we could potentially do. Is Nurturing Pixie picking up the Riddler. Now that's some card advantage going on here.
Yeah, you like your Riddlers twice warped, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Get it coming, get it going. And, typically you want to hard cast your Riddler, right? Like you want to get that buy on the board. But this deck, very light splash of blue. So, if you can't have like another Hallowed Fountain, another Verge lined up, this is a great way to sort of keep digging, keep using your mana efficiently.
Yeah, Derek's starting to turn with another opt here. Thinking,
and then use Summerflock as this big upset card. And Derek Davis, no stranger to Eddie Merkrab, somebody who's been using it to top 8 worlds and has been having a great run, and using it here to tap down these creatures, stopping all the pressure.
Yeah, and notably doing that in the upkeep, so that the Springleaf Drum can't make man in the main phase. Just making sure to get the best timing there as Julian warps a Quantum Riddler, plays Demand Temple, and passes back to Derek, who now has 9 power in play, starting the turn with a sleight of hand. Finds 2 lands. See what he's leaning towards here. Looks like he's just going to move in for 9. A big chunk out of Julian's life total.
Yeah, and Julian, his Sage has lifelink. He's gained a little bit, but these creatures are attacking increments of 5 and 4 only, and that's big chunks. As another Eddie Merkrab taps it down, and you start to see the appeal of this deck, right? We're putting bodies on board, we're applying a lot of pressure, and this is all without Sunderflock. And Julian's doing some cool stuff with drawing a lot of cards, using Riddler, making a bunch of micro advantages, but it's hard when your opponent's putting this much actual pressure on your life total.
Yeah, I mean, I've often joked that it feels like when you're playing Spellementals, it's almost like you're playing Dan. Like, you just need to get across 4 times, 5 times maybe. And all your creatures, they do it. So as we see here, yeah, that attack for what, 13, 14, get a block with the Burst Lightning finishing it off, with Derek Davis taking down game 1 here.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the things that I found to be pretty funny about this deck is your Dan analogy is right, I think, where it's because you use such big chunks, you need to get across 4 or 5 times depending on the creature, for the most part. And then Burst Lightning, you get across 3 times. They probably shot. We got a lot of those in Standard, right? And then now suddenly the opponent's dead. So really fast, really efficient. And this mono white deck, I would say, well, it's Azorius with a small splash for Quantum Riddler. This is really when you're playing against, I think, a lot more grindy stuff. Post-war, I talked about, we're going to have some cards like High Noon, like Rest in Peace, that can be problems for the opponent's deck. But I don't think this is the exact matchup you want to see, especially in
Yeah, I think you're totally right. That deck is really the Momo deck's the prowess killer, whereas Spellementals it's not about these small little guys. We got big boys, big crabs, big elementals, big Sunderflocks. Playing those small ball games is going to be tough, but we'll see how Julian's prepared for this one. It's not like he didn't know this was something he could face in the tournament.
Yeah, this deck has been very impressive and really put up a lot of good performances over the last little bit. And speaking of performances, the players are ready for game number 2. As we're now pre-recording all our matches here on the NRG, less downtime, more action for you, the players. By the way, you can see here, Adam Lost with Moses in Legacy. It's up 1-0.
Yeah, quick lead here for them as Julian takes a mulligan and leads again on a Springleaf Drum. Derek leading on a Spiral Canal, sleight of hand, a very, very regular opening for this deck. Seeing if he's opting for the land or the spell there, just sculpting that early draw, cheapening those creatures. Julian with his second land. And now kind of one of the core ends of the deck, warping in that Starlight Shepherd, searching up one of these 1-drops. Looks like, getting that namesake card of the Momo, and now can use the drum with that warp creature to cast it. Just doing a lot for little, which is a lot of how this white deck works.
Yeah, and this Angel is also really good too, just getting you lands sometimes. This deck does run a slightly lower land count due to Springleaf Drum and Momo, right? It's a lot like having an elf deck going on, but then it also represents a lot of value when you have this card like Nurturing Pixie in hand. So we had one of those, we pick it up. Now the Momo is going to make the Angel cost 1 next turn. And once again, if the game's about value, it doesn't seem like a lot, but mono white decks never do, right, Abe? They nickel and dime when they're got card advantage, and it does eventually overwhelm you.
Yeah, and also, that Pixie is just a 2/2 clock right there that already got its advantage. If Derek had a Burst Lightning or something not being exposed, and now we can really kick off with the Momo essentially being free, and with that pickup of Spider Sense as well. That drum is leaving a lot of things protected for a lot of the worst things that can happen to Julian as he goes right back in with the Shepherd. See what he's going to find here.
Yeah, and Spider Sense, I think one of the other really big pickups for being blue, along with Quantum Riddler. You get some other stuff potentially too, like Quantum Riddler, excuse me, like beyond Quantum Riddler, and that like Disdainful Stroke jumps out to me as a card that at times makes a lot of sense. Annul can make a lot of sense, but Spider Sense is sort of just negate plus stopping these triggers, and there's a couple decks where stopping the triggers matters so much. The Simic Rhythm decks, when they get a hoof going, it also stops the rhythm. And this deck, stopping Cinderflock from unsummoning all your advantage is worth itself, and you still can stop a lethal burst lightning or removal spell onto your Momo. So some pretty real stuff happening there in that regard.
Yeah, we saw those crabs do a lot in game one, and that trigger too can be one that maybe you're not looking to get, but can definitely be important. So Derek here, kind of behind right. Julian's kind of firing on all cylinders. Derek's played a sleight of hand and a tapped land. It'll be interesting to see how he's firing back here. Looks like he's got a few options, and he's going to start with a Pyroclasm.
Yeah, I mean, this card's really strong with it. Look, there's that Spider Sense fighting over it, and you have it, for cards like Thunderflock. But in moments like this, you got to make sure that you didn't make them have to have the Thunderflock. So I really like using it here just to sort of, get something going. And then, Abe, this card's really impressed me. Cosmic Grand Zenith.
Yeah, Cosmic Grand Zenith, and now a second Springleaf Drum using the Zenith for mana, turning that Springleaf Drum into his choice of 2 creatures or 2, actually 3 +1/+1 counters. A lot of damage immediately, especially in this deck that, right, you said nickel and diming, constantly just pulling 1 card ahead. So powerful to turn those 1 and 2 cards. Now they're, this Pixie's now a 3/3. This Momo's now, a 2/2. That's double, triple what they started as they're setting Derek down to 13.
Yeah, it's also really interesting, right? The Cosmic Grand Zenith making 1/1s, if you haven't used your drums already, also makes you get more mana in some spots, right? That's one of the things I learned in playing this deck was like, oh, I can keep popping off a little bit if I make 1/1s here. And getting pressure is great, but the fact that your kind of card works in all those different ways, that's sort of how you have to, I think, get the most advantage out of this deck. You need to get every piece of the Buffalo working together to get across the finish line here. As Derek is digging really hard here, he doesn't have a ton of cards that can get him out of this spot that aren't the card Thunderflock. Now, we can chain Eddie Mercrabs, keep the pressure off us like we sort of did in game number 1, but we need some sort of big undo button here, I think, to really stabilize this game in a timely way.
Yeah, and this Winter Night Story is, putting 3 spells in the graveyard, it looks like. Maybe only 2 if you discarded Multiversal Passage there. But like you said, needing to get that Thunderflock down is the best reset button the deck has. Got to start with some spells in the graveyard. So Burst Lightning taking down the Momo. Julian here with looks like 3 cards in hand. That Shepherd still off to the side. Warped. 2 Springleaf Drums. So has a good amount of mana to make something happen, but at minimum showing just about half of Derek Davis's life total. Attack for 6 here. Dropping Derek to 7. And we'll see what Julian has to follow up. And it looks like the answer is nothing. Passing right back with 2 cards in hand. Derek drawing. Got a handful of options. This is kind of where Derek wanted to get to. Mason, what do you think the biggest priority is here for Derek?
It's just staying alive. When I talked last turn cycle about, hey, we're going to need a Thunderflock, I assumed Julian had spells we could cast in hand, but Derek fighting with the Momo, I think, made it so the Starfield Shepherd wasn't playable. The drum was a little bit hard to use without giving up that pressure. And so now Julian is sort of in a spot where he's actually starting to feel it a little bit here. And so having this double Merc Crab, right now, suddenly the tide's turned, and Derek just needs to make sure he doesn't die as he's presenting lethal if he attacks for 10 here. Now, he might want to hold back, depends on his hand, but no, decides to put Julian in check.
Yeah, looks like, how quickly the tables turn, right? As soon as Derek had the spells in the yard and those crabs cost 2, using the crab to tap both creatures in the upkeep, shut Julian off of mana, can't even get that Shepherd off of Warp, right? And then getting the other crab in play to take Julian down from 20 to 10, right? Playing Dan, getting you halfway there.
Yep.
So it looks like a Seer is sent at that Pixie to try to clean the board up a bit, and Julian using Bounce Off to save it.
Okay,
and upkeep a 3rd crab.
Oh, geez. Yeah, and this is one of those things where Julian can maybe, do some things to like help out a little bit and stabilize, as Helia comes down here to gain some life. But it's just the increments of damage are so large. And that turn where we just, we attacked for a bunch, we were trying to be the aggressor, but having no follow-up pressure. It's just gave Derek that window he needed and shows how fighting over things like Momo, or any of the mana accelerants when decks rely on them can be so backbreaking.
Yeah, and Helia here, right, we need to gain, the first life is really good, right? Because the crabs only deal in increments of 5. Got to get 5 more life. That's the good news is the 1's good. Bad news is you need 5 more for it to be, for that one to really be good here as Pixie comes down, gaining a life, and I think we're figuring out what we're doing with the Cosmere Zenith and what we're doing with the Pixie trigger.
I think what's happening is we're stacking the Pixie is returning the warped creature, and then the Zenith is on top, getting us the 2 life from the +1/+1. Excuse me, from the 2 guys instead of the +1/+1 counter. It might be that we're discussing that with our teammate as well. This is a team event, but yeah, it looks like that's what's happening here. We're putting in the 1/1s, gaining a little bit of life, and then repicking up our warp creature. It looks like actually Springlift Drum. Excuse me.
Yeah, looking like we want to keep that Helia in play, get a little bit more life, maybe build a little bit more of a cushion, as these tokens are going to be a real problem for those crabs. And Quantum Riddler comes down, gassing us back up. 2 more cards. Hopefully they're good ones for Julian.
Yeah, and you can imagine, right? Like if you were playing Dimir, how miserable this would be, right? Let's forget the part where we registered Dimir, so all our matchups feel miserable. But, like if you were trying to play a normal game of Magic on the ground with average-sized creatures, this Momo deck goes really crazy.
Yeah, it looks like we're dumping our hand again here, just trying to get as much life as possible. We've gained, counting it, right, I believe that's the 6 life to get up to 16. And then even drawing a card off the Helia. Now we've got a few things in Warp. We've got, a couple Springleaf Drums. We've got a couple extra tokens. We can maybe take a hit here. We've got a flying creature. Derek's still at 7. So not quite out of the woods yet here as Derek was maybe just before that turn where Julian popped off. It kind of looked like the writing was on the wall. But yeah. Oh my God, Sunderflock. We talked about this all game. How this is kind of the problem here. That 6th point of life paying off, giving Julian one last oh, never mind, not one last hope. Burst Lightning takes it down.
Yeah, so taking it down. Adam just won the legacy match too, Abe. Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, you got some of the best players on the series, best players in the room. They're bound to win matches pretty quickly, I imagine.
Yeah, and the Triple Izzet team takes it down. I mean, it's just funny how they both won round 1 like at the exact same time, and they both, game 1, they both win game 2 at the exact same time. If you're the modern seat there, you're just kind of like, oh, I guess it's over with already, and that's one of the benefits of these team events. Even if maybe your game isn't going perfectly, your teammates can bail you out. And Abe, I gotta say, I love the Momo deck. I've been playing it a lot this week. You and I actually talked about it on our podcast some earlier in the week. It's good, but this matchup definitely felt like not the one to see the Momo drum, kind of going off, as you might say.
No, it's definitely, I mean, as we saw there right at the end, Sunderflock showing up even once does so much to undo everything you fight so hard for with the Momo deck. Just not the right matchup for what that deck is looking to exploit.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you what is the right matchup. What we're going to be showing next round. Round 2 is already underway. Like I said, we're pre-recording all our rounds now here at the NRG series. That means more action for you. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break, set up that feature match, and be back with round number 2. See you soon.
It's our first event of the year. We're after our round one of our Team Trios event. I'm joined by Derek Davis, Steven Dykman, and Adam Wasburn-Moses. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good start to the day?
Yeah, very good. Very good start to the day, for sure.
Noticed,
Definitely where we want to be.
for sure. Noticed you guys are Team Is It. Is that a meme or very much intentional based on power level?
I think we all selected decks independently and just kind of all came to Is It in some capacity. There wasn't much coordinating between formats. We kind of just did what we wanted to do, and it just all happened to be Is It.
Wonderful. Adam, we'll start with you. On a pretty sweet welder list, noticed a lot of new cards. Seem to have a combo element. Could you explain to us and the viewers how that works?
Yes. So basically, it turns out when you have Goblin Welder plus Surveillance Camera, you get infinite welder activations, which is extremely trivial in Legacy to turn into a win. You can draw your deck most of the time with Mox Opal by making a mana every time you do the welder loop, and then you can eventually Surveillance Camera to draw 2 cards for every artifact you play, and if you play enough artifacts, you can draw your deck and then figure out some way to kill from there. It's not that difficult.
It's Legacy.
And so it's just a very compact kill package with Goblin Welder, which is not the same with Painter, where you often want the Welder plus a Painter plus a Grindstone. It takes a while to assemble. It's just way cleaner.
Thank you very much. I'll have you pass over to Steven. Steven, we're going to ask you about your Affinity brew. Also looks pretty sweet and includes a lot of new cards. How'd you land on that deck? How you liking?
So it's really interesting, actually. One of my my teammates, Andrew Wolthice, is like a big artifact guy, and I stream, for those that don't know. I used to be doing it every day, but lately I've been doing it less than every day. But regardless, basically a while back I streamed a list that Andrew came up with that was like a red-black Affinity list that played, it's like Ifnir or something, I think is the name of the card. I think it's a Modern Horizons like 3 card, and it basically does something really similar to what Krang does, which is a big addition from the new set for Affinity and Modern, I think, which is we did see it in game 1. I played it on turn 2, I believe. But anyway, it's blue, and then 6. It's a 1/4, and then when it enters, you basically draw up to 4 cards in your hand. Basically, that was a really nice addition because now we don't have to play like red-black anymore. We can just play blue, which you want to do anyway because you get Kappa Cannoneer, which is definitely another extremely broken artifact. So those were that was kind of the idea behind this deck was take the old deck that Andrew made that I streamed a while back. Was very fast, like a lot of Springleaf Drums and stuff like that. Take the Affinity list that people had been playing, which doesn't typically include Memnite and Springleaf Drum. People are kind of toying with the list though, because obviously Krang's new, just kind of trying to be really quick, get a lot of artifacts out there, get a lot of mana, slam Krang, slam Kappa, and just kill them really fast. So.
Yep. Tried and true, love it.
Yep.
And then Derek, over to you. Again, on an Is It. Obviously, that has a presence in Standard, kind of between a couple of different options, between Spellementals is what you ultimately went with. Can you talk us through your preference for that, why you landed on that for this week?
A lot of it was data-driven from the weekend events, kind of looking for a deck that, like, I thought that the Prowess deck would be overrepresented here, so I definitely wanted to target that. I thought with how good of a result Landfall had, I wanted to at least make sure I had game against that and sending for Lessons. I thought that might be pretty well represented. But ultimately, I mean, data showed that Lessons and Landfall were tight, but slightly losing over the weekend. But I can see both those being reasonable, especially
You're gonna
kind of
take the
tech for it.
variance.
Yeah, and then I was just really happy with like the prowess matchup. How really it started with me playing prowess, and then I started running into Spellementals. It's like, man, this matchup is tough. Like it's you gotta pull out a lot from that side.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all three for hanging out. Obviously, great start to the weekend. Good luck the rest of the rounds. Hopefully, we'll see you in top 8 later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NRG series event here this weekend in Elmhurst, Illinois. I'm Mason Clark, joined by Abe Stein. We're bringing you round number 2 of our team event. Just saw the team of Davis, Wasburn, and Dykeman win round number 1. We saw a great little interview with them, but we didn't get to see much modern action from those players. So we're actually going to have them back in our feature match for round number 2 here, Abe, and get to see some modern gameplay here. With the RTQ season coming up very soon, I'm really excited to see what these players are kind of bringing and how they plan to fight.
Yeah, I mean, the people's format, modern, right? I mean, it's so beloved. I'm excited to see it. I know that as much as we've had some great standard gameplay, the modern, who doesn't love it? It's going to be good. I'm excited to see what the Is It modern deck we've seen from Team Is It here is. We saw them talk about it being Affinity a little bit, but seeing it all in action is going to be really cool.
Yeah, well, let's head on into the feature match area and see it now as our players are ready.
All right, so it looks like we've got Dykeman on that Is It Affinity deck. Leading off on just I mean, what you want to see when you're playing these Is It artifact decks, just Emery, 2 Baubles, Spiral Canal. Doesn't get much better than that against Breeding Pool and a Tameo.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. You see, normally you would pop these bubbles right away, but one, you have like Cap Canyon, right? So you might want to just replay that next turn. But he also has Tameo of his own in hand, so we can use these baubles at the end of turn, draw some more credit potential, but also save them to set up the Tameo, proper flip her. So a lot going on here. Grinding Station, though, over here on the right, I think our deck list names will be caught up here in a second. I believe this is the new modern deck. It's kind of sweeping the nation here, Abe, with Sewer Valence. Essentially, we've reinvented Underworld Breach without the broken card, where Sewer Valence will untap something, and then our station will untap, and the Emery will untap, and we will sort of go infinitely untapping, replaying the Sewer Valence, milling our opponent for 3, and eventually win the game. So if that gets going, we'll kind of get into the heat of things there. But picking up a Mox here off the Malevolent Rumble, one of the big advantages. And honestly, Abe, we got double Mox decks here.
I mean, first of all, thank you for pointing out that this is the breach or the no longer breach Grinding Station combo deck, because I think that for a lot of us, the whiplash of Tameo, Urza Saga, Malevolent Rumble is, hey, wait, hold on, I thought we got rid of that, but no, Tameo coming in, getting a clue, but yeah, it's that Sewer Valence camera, like you said, enabling that combo. Now you do need an active Emery as opposed to just Underworld Breach doing it all for you, but still a really potent combo here is we have kind of 2 different ends of some of the most powerful things in the spectrum, right? These Mox decks, either one using it as a combo thing and the other one kind of a more aggressive take, as Dykeman is popping a bobble here and looking, I guess, to move on to his next turn and think about maybe cracking the second as well. In your mind, Mason, like, what's the way this matchup
so I mean, the new Grinding Station combo deck, it is new, right? It sort of only works with the new Sewer Valence card from TMNT. I did watch Nathan of the Gilt Leaf, our RC champion from the last modern cycle, actually top 8 the challenge with this deck on Moto the other day, and it plays a lot of different games surprisingly well. I don't know if Matthew's playing that exact deck list, but I think one of the big things that's going to matter here is that Dykeman does have cards like Tormod's Crypt that can break up this combo with a lot of pressure. And cards like Engineered Explosives, like we see in Hand in the Yard, actually also break up the combo in a lot of ways. So I think the B plan is going to be really big here from Matthew in order to actually get across the finish line, as Dykeman should be able to actually stop the, I'm going to mill you out infinitely here part of the deck fairly easily, especially once you have an active Emery and Baubles. You will just find those cards quite quickly.
Yeah, some interesting decisions here in front of Dykeman. Right as you said, that Engineer Explosives could just be worth I'm maybe using here to just clear up the tokens and Moxen from Matt's side, with the Emery there to maybe get some more advantage. I mean, so much to consider every turn as Dykeman's settling on Urza's Saga of his own here on Chapter 1. Looks like he's still thinking about whether or not it is time to use this Engineer Explosives or maybe deploy a different threat.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you can explosives here on 0, clean up the Moxen, but the Sagas probably wants to make some friends, so clearing that up could be kind of nice. You also, you can play your Opal afterwards, but if you do play it afterwards, then your Engineer Explosive is less likely to be on because you might be needing to use that to turn the mana on. It's very awkward sometimes in this deck when you have to use E on 0 and the pseudo mirrors.
Yeah, and looking like Dykeman's opted for targeting the Mox Opal and then casting Pinnacle Emissary for its warp cost before casting the Mox Opal, getting this trigger, and Surveillance Camera now being deployed to tap that Pinnacle Emissary for the turn in case there's like a Springleaf Drum or something, can't get any mana back out of that.
Yeah, it is one of the interesting things, right? Like this being a weird tapper and untapper. It comes up in ways that you would not really expect. And this round, I don't think it's like make or breaking it, but it's just something you kind of get to do with this deck and something that, you'll see come up in your games in ways that, being clever with that card is a great way to gain 1% or 2% in equity.
Yeah, and I have to say here, this is what teammates are for. Steven Dykeman, that heavy play deck box too secure. Can't get the tokens out of it. Teammates got him right there on the ready. So we now have that drone token represented. We have Metalcraft. So we do have the ability to make mana with this Mox Opal. Looks like probably more lands than Steven wants in hand here, trying to figure out what exactly comes next. This Engineered Explosives?
Yeah, it makes sense to, I think, get it on 0 because you can also just threaten it. Even though some of your stuff might die, get the drone, have your Mox Opal on because the Emissary is going to warp out in a second, right? So we have the Opal for now, but not for forever. I think you could potentially put it on 1 and use it to fight over the Tameo. That seems totally reasonable to me. But we also have this Krang in our hand, which is this new sort of all-star card to Affinity. So dumping our hand here is going to be important if we want to use our mana efficiently and actually spend mana on our cards. And it seems like we did.
Yeah, and I think that makes total sense as well because you need to, right, if you're just going to play it on 0, well, now we have this Mox Opal, we have these drones we've committed to making, like, that might not be the best choice, but this is also going to get the Surveillance Camera out of play, which is another piece of the puzzle that will need to be assembled on the other side while keeping those drones around. So we're going back to, we've got the Saga should be going up to Chapter 2 here in a second at playing land.
Yeah, and you can see just how much material and how many options both players have, right? Like in Modern, typically your whole hand is playable, I would say, by like turn 3 at the latest. But with these decks, it's sometimes even all playable by turn 1, right? If you're willing to sort of expose and go that way. And having all these options, it can be really overwhelming, even with, really veteran players. And small optimizations we've seen from both players of just making sure to play these cards at these certain times is the small advantages you get. Like we saw Dykeman, Emery, then use Emissary, so the Emissary couldn't even get got by removal. Little things like that, attacking here, then, playing our Urza. So now we have even more mana with Urza to pop off as, like another small but important thing.
Yeah, and I mean, this Urza generating so much mana right off the bat between those clue tokens, the artifacts already in play, Looks like we're just gonna activate the 5-minute ability straight away and see what we find. Feels like the advantage bar pretty firmly in the favor of the player with the Urza, if you ask me.
Yeah,
looks like you know, there's obviously some counterplay there, but this card exists, right? You talked about how much material there is. This card exists to kind of break through those stalls and just make even more of the material you have, really snowball the game, as Malevolent Rumble giving some options here between either a Tamio, Mox Amber, or that Grinding Station namesake card of the deck, and that is what he will take.
Yeah, and getting the station is nice for a couple reasons. We don't quite have an Imri yet, so we don't have like the loop set up in the way that you would want to. But now Dykeman needs to really think about it. It is just an artifact as well, so it sort of acts like a Moxen with your Urza, but even more so, right? When you play artifacts, or the thing this untap, so now your station gets mana again. So it's weirdly like this combo piece, but also this value engine card. And that's one of the big advantages of having Urza as your backup threat compared to Corey Steelcutter, right? We've seen some, players going one way or the other. There's no hard line yet on kind of what's optimal, such a new deck. But this is one of the big selling points in my mind of playing Urza is you just get more mana, more resources, and just, more kind of theory of cards.
Yeah, just more cardboard. Who could say no to more cardboard?
Not me.
Dykeman here taking up the Urza Saga. Draws another engineered explosive. So talking about cardboard, can definitely eliminate some of what his opponent has going on here. But like every turn, right? So many decisions between Emry, the cards in hand, this Urza Saga, right? What's invested? A lot to navigate. We have Spirebluff Canal coming into play untapped. Probably the last time. I guess maybe next turn could be another chance for that, but a no-brainer play there. Thinking about how to best use what he has available to him.
Yeah, drawing something engineered explosive is interesting too, because your opponent's now got this Urza in play. We talked before how it's a little awkward with our own Opal, right? Our own drones. But it might be what you need to do. Play a Krang, right? Draw some cards with the E already in play, see what you hit, and then maybe try to keep the opponent off having any sort of, resources. It's going to be an interesting position to be in.
Yeah, how much thought here are you given to like maybe trying to kill this Grinding Station? Of the options available, that's probably like, you have this engineered explosives. You are the only one, right? You don't have a 2-cost permanent, so this might be a good place to start. But there's just so many options. Like, where would you be starting here, Mason?
I would try to figure out how am I going to get across the finish line here, right? And then start thinking about how my opponent wants to get across the finish line. Dykeman plays a lot of Magic. He might not be super familiar with these, station decks in their totality. And like I talked about before, there's so many different variations at the moment that, Urza is a big giveaway, but it might not give everything away. He's going to know the main combo pieces. And I think the big thing in my mind here is sort of, okay, can I stop him from like out-resourcing me so that I can work towards getting a Kappa or something? And that's where I do kind of like the engineered explosive line. It's sort of just like, okay, get a Krang, draw a lot of cards. But it looks like we're going to actually fight over the Tamio and the surveillance camera, and then maybe, fight through the rest of these material as time goes on.
Yeah. Looking like we're going to go with popping the first engineered explosives on 1 to take out the Tamio, getting in for 2 with these drones, and then likely, at least what I'd expect here, is seeing, the engineered explosives taking out the rest. So leaving just the Urza and the station behind, as well as the ability to activate the Emery to kind of rebuild some of what was lost.
Mm-hmm.
Which, hey, look at the start of the turn. A lot more stuff going on Pierce's side.
Yeah, and
Dykeman's got that going for him.
Yeah, this isn't your most exciting play ever, right? Like, you lose a lot of your stuff too. You're left behind with the Emery and a Mox by replaying it off the Emery, which is nice. Your opponent does have an Urza, so I think, they're sort of advantaged at the moment. But we talked about this. Emery can sort of undo a lot of these advantages. You can sort of lock out the combo stuff. So this isn't the worst thing in the world for Dykeman as long as we don't get too, far drowned in advantage here and stuff like that. And forcing your opponent to kind of, have to blow up your Urza Saga constructs every turn from the side of grinding station is pretty good spot to be as well.
Yeah. And I mean, this Urza Saga also looking like it's going to be rebuilding a bit. There's some cool stuff we can do with this grinding station to make it a little bit more mana, even on some of these 0 drops we have with the Urza. So it's going to be pretty imperative to see what these next few cards that Pierre has access to are, as we're finding Soul Guide Lantern off of the Urza Saga to kind of shut down the Emery, exiling Kappa Cannoneer out of the yard, saying, no way am I going to let you have that, because that really is one of the ways that the game probably does get away from Pierre, right? Urza can only do so much, and these chump blocks can only do so much when the creature's unblockable.
Yes.
So
Soul Guide Lantern is actually so huge here.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of looked at how Emery was keeping up with Urza, but with the Emery lockdown, right, the kind of permanents generating all this advantage are just Urza. There is nothing in the graveyard. So really, really, showing that effectiveness of that Urza Saga toolbox. That, right, you mentioned the Tormod's Crypt maybe in Dykeman's deck being important, but on the same note, the Soul Guide Lantern out of Pierre's deck just as important as the second grinding station come down, and now Urza is being used for mana again.
Yeah, and this is kind of awesome, right? Like each station's making 2 mana, so all our 1 and 0 mana things are netting us mana. All our 0 mana stuff nets us 2 mana, right? Even our expensive spells, as long as we get them down at first, they get rebated on the back end, and then you get to start spinning with your Urza.
Yeah, and the Sewer Valence Camera, even again, like almost Dark Ritual, right? Let me cast this for 1, untap my 2 artifacts this artifact can play, untap the artifact tap to cast it, and is a draw 2 sitting in play on its own as well. So looks like we're getting this Urza spin for a Mox Amber.
The value train continues. Yeah, I mean, you do lose 1 Mox to the Legend Rule. Oh, no.
Yeah, but you do get 2 more mana out of it. Oh, no. And I think we're going right back in.
Yeah.
Metallic Rebuke, not what you're looking for.
Oh, it's not good. And the last card in hand is Urza, so this might be the end of the value line. I was curious to see if Pierre was going to go for the pop of the Surveillance Cam just to draw 2 cards and then untap, maybe the Mox Amber and see if we can just keep spinning and spinning. But, I mean, here we are now. Dykeman can get out of this, like in theory, don't get us wrong, but it's a lot of value here, and we do need to sort of work through it pretty quickly and get this game on the back foot. One interesting thing too, our standard players are already in game number 3. They are booking it.
Yeah, I mean, this is every turn feels like walking a tightrope against these. I think anyone who played during the Breach format kind of remembers that feeling of, well, I don't know. I guess maybe this could be the turn that it ends, but so many decisions being made on both ends here, managing the Urza Sagas, managing the Emery, all the Urza shuffling and triggers. There's just a lot to think about on both sides as Dykeman is thinking about making a construct here versus casting that Pinnacle Emissary or, any of the spells in his hand this turn. As much as Pierre makes so many game actions, Dykeman's got to pick the right one here.
Mm-hmm. There's also something you said, like, Pierre maybe wants to even pop this Soul Guide Lantern ahead of time, play around Pithing Needle, right? Like, that would be a weirdly powerful card that you see every now and again as a one of. I would say it has fallen out of main decks for the most part, but it's something you need to think about here. Another card that you maybe want to think about is Aether Spellbomb, but it's not like that huge a deal. It's really just fighting over the construct, because if you bounce the Urza, these grinding stations are going to pay, you mana on the back end, right? You get the Urza down, assuming you can, at least cast them, which with any land you would be able to here. It's a very weird spot. It's like Dykeman has a lot of power and a lot of potential issues, but you can play through a lot of them.
Yeah, it looks like opting to cash in the Soul Guide Lantern to avoid the possibility of Pithing Needle I mean, really heads up play. And it looks like he does have the Pithing Needle. So still a good get into the face of this Urza or even the grinding stations potentially. But, if that Soul Guide Lantern can't be used, then the Emery's still active. And we talked about how that's, almost just as good as the Urza in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. And with, Krang in hand, if we can get that down, then that will sort of, give us a chance to, even find something like Mishra's Bauble, right? We don't want to find these things that sort of stop the combo, right? You don't want to lose, but, worst case scenario, you're digging through more cards, right? That's not the end of the world. Remember, there is a mana floating because of that Urza Saga. Krang, it's really nice, I think, in these sort of decks. It's powerful, but it being 8 mana as your draw effect, even with Affinity for Artifacts, it can come up and be a little bit awkward at times.
Yeah, and it's also ready to draw until you have 4 cards in your hand. Not just straight up draw 2 cards, 3 cards. So, for a few turns here, Dykeman's been working through some lands in hand. And so maybe Krang not even effective for another turn or two as we go back to Pierre, who has got Haywire Might for that Pithing Needle, getting us right back where we were last turn. Really really huge there to have that one of that Urza Saga target just ready to go.
And I love this play from Pierre as well. You can tell he's very locked in, somebody who's played with these cards a lot. In response to my station triggers from my Haywire Might, I will float a blue with it. I will pop your thing. I will then float blue. I will then untap my stations. I will retap my stations. I will use my Urza. Just making sure to get every single ounce of value out of here while also just being a combo deck, right? So a lot of power here. Abe, this is giving me flashbacks to 2020, right? We got Emery versus Urza. There's so much happening and your deck has so much material. But 2020 Mesa would never believe Skateboard's a Magic card as it comes into play here.
Yeah, I mean, Skateboard tapping the Pinnacle Emissary. The first, no, not first, but one of the new cards here in the grinding station deck, part of that Urza Saga package. In addition to the Sewer Valence Cam, Urza can get on a skateboard and start, really, really going. Or really any artifact gets Urza really, really going, doesn't it, Mason?
It really does, yeah. And Emery too, and it looks like we presented the combo as well there as we found Emery off it. So now we have Surveillance Camp. Dykeman picked up his cards there, but I'll give you the quick rundown here. Grinding Station will untap, right? And every time an artifact enters, it does that. You'll float a mana with your Mox Amber. You can then sack the Amber to the station, right? You can use your Emery to replay the Amber. Then the Surveillance Camp, with tap target, Surveillance Camp enters. You target the Emery, it untaps. Now you sort of create a loop, right? Mill you for 3, mill you for 3, mill you for 3. I can't beat an Emrakul the Promised End or anything like that, or Aeon Sorin, but good enough to beat a lot of modern decks in game 1. And we also saw just how good the backup plan was, right? We just sort of presented a lot of constructs and interactive artifacty stuff. And while I don't want to say this is on like the level of like Oka Urza from 2020, we saw back then, and honestly, since the release of Urza and Emery, just how good artifacts plus some interaction with even the smallest combo in your deck can be at winning the game.
Yeah, and notably also Skateboard, they're enabling that to happen all in the same turn, right? Giving Emery haste so that combo can be executed right there on the spot. Really took that game and closed it really quick. That grinding station combo, like you mentioned, just decking Dykeman just because, oh, look, I have it all. Here it is. I'm looking at you from the sewers, and let me see your whole deck. Oh, you want to walk away from this one? All right, we'll see you in game 2.
Yeah. And Skateboard, a real upgrade over Lava Spur Boots, I think at sort of making the construct backup plan more reasonable, right? Activate my second construct, equip the boots was always nice. But now the fact that I can get rid of a blocker, right? Or tap down a mana, right? So now suddenly maybe, you're not able to interact the same way you want to, or you have to do it at an awkward time for you. I think it's meaningfully more important than we saw Lava Spur Boots, which was a fringe card in all these decks. And almost the exact same Magic card. And Skateboard has just been dominating both all these modern decks and some of the legacy Urza pile decks. So awesome to see. Let's head on down to game number 2 and see if Pierre can win that, or if Dykeman can maybe tie things up for game number 3. Notably, Dykeman's sitting pretty. Both his teammates are winning their matches or tied. Derek Davis and Grayson Nimitz both battling it out in standard, and they're both on game number 3 still, despite 2 very fast first games.
And actually, just as you were saying that, Adam winning his match. So Dykeman back against the wall himself, but teams standing tall. So,
7-card hand. As you go down to 6, you go down to 5, you can just be, hey, here's a bunch of stuff past hope to top deck. You need to kind of lower your bar for the mulligan in that world. But when you're on 7 cards, you really need to be taking a second and be like, okay, can I get a better 6? Is what I'm doing actually strong enough? Because a lot of my strength is this explosive nature. As we see, there looks to be a start of an explosive turn here.
Yeah, starting with Pinnacle Emissary, a Mishra's Bauble. I think I saw another, maybe another ball, definitely a Mem Knight in hand here for Dykeman. So we're going to be just starting with that quick clock, a lot of pressure. As this Emissary turns all of those artifacts in the opening hand into, additional 1/1s, additional points of damage. As now, there's a Tormod Crypt as well, another piece of disruption too. So casually here, looking like here's 5 power. I've got a Mox and a land. Let me draw another card off this bauble on top of Pierre's deck. But that only answers 1 token as opposed to the we talked about with our last match, right? That 5 damage right there. That's a quarter life total. We only got to do that 4 times. So a lot for Pierre to work through as he leads on. Fire Might.
Pierre has not a terrible turn in the abstract, right? Like in this mirror match, having a Haywire Might's kind of nice. You have the Mox, that can be kind of good. But Dykeman has put a bunch of things into play. And now the question is, does he have something to go with it? Does he have the Krang? Does he have a Kappa Cannoneer? What can his next play be? Because this is good, but Pierre can overpower this relatively quickly if we don't have some good disruption to back this up on Dykeman's side, which we easily could. Cards like Sinking to Super go a long way to helping these sort of strategies cross the finish line. Metallic Rebuke has been a really powerful magic card as well. So it's not like Dykeman's just like, well, I hope to get lucky from here. He does have a bunch of cards that are either interaction or payoffs here, along with a few more enablers we could get, quote unquote, unlucky to draw.
Yeah, and it looks like Dykeman's hand comprised mostly of some of that interaction. I mean, talked about Sinking to Stupor. Has a Pithing Needle there. We're cracking in for 5, and it looks like Pierre is just going to take it rather than trading off that Haywire Might with the Mem Knight. Pretty understandable choice as Dykeman playing that Sinking to Stupor as a land and then playing this Pinnacle Emissary from Warp. Just continuing to develop his own pressure here rather than worrying about interacting as we go back to Pierre.
Yeah, and I think this has been a moment of Metallic Rebuke as a threat, assuming as the answer for a potential threat. The idea of keeping up your resources makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more tempting. But with Sinking to Super being this one-shot thing, actually just putting the Pinnacle Emissary in play is probably a better answer in the aggregate, because you end up actually having less time on your opponent's side to cast their spells, even though Sinking to Super would undo one big spell like an Urza. It doesn't need to be that kind of card, as Pierre's deck is very mana efficient as yours, but looks like even though we're quite mana efficient, we're kind of maybe in trouble here not being able to cast our cards.
Yeah, you're only as efficient as the spells you can cast, and efficient on 1 green source is not really what this deck was made to do. Is, like you mentioned, that Pinnacle Emissary presenting a lot of pressure, and all of those additional interactive pieces, right? That Pithing Needle now also has a 1/1 attached. Another Tormod Script also has another 1/1 attached, as we're drawing a card here with Fiery Islet and looking to just continue to sink in the sleeper hold here, trying to really choke out Pierre. We're playing Spiral of Canal for turn and getting in once again with the whole family.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the beginning, right? Typically your opponent can overpower this, but when you are summoning like this, having all this, burst power is really strong. Also, sometimes it is good enough. I talk about you can just always outclass this. That's not the case, right? This is a lot of bodies, and if your deck isn't going to handle this sort of thing, creatures have a very low fail rate, and getting chunked in for 8 over and over again will be a problem.
Yeah, and Pierre also, again, opting not to block and maybe use that Haywire Might to try to take out some problematic permanent. as Pithing Needle coming down here from Dykeman, maybe prompting some action. But we'll see what Pierre does in response. If you're Pierre, what are you thinking about as far as like how do I win from here, right?
Yeah, I imagine combo is your best bet, right? Like playing a fair game from here is unlikely. If your deck has engineered explosives, that is something that could actually maybe get you out of this, right? And let you play a fair game from there, as you would undo so much of what Dykeman's done. I'm unsure what he named with the needle, but I'm gonna guess grinding station is sort of, where you go. Potentially Dykeman maybe would name Haywire Might if he thought that he had something that was worth doing. So those are going to be probably the two main names, and that would inform a lot of what I'm thinking about as Pierre.
Yeah, Pierre does find the land here. Looks like we are fetching. Trying to figure out the whole turn here. It looks like we're fetching and casting grinding station.
Okay.
Which does turn on Metalcraft. So I guess we can get... I think we can stay alive. I think we can stay alive and get rid of the Pithing Needle. Just in face.
Yeah, if the Pithing Needle is not on Haywire Might, you have blocked the Emissary, right? And then pop the Haywire Might, kill the Needle, or maybe the Crypt, whichever one you think is more important. And then, from there, gain your 2, fall down to 1. And 1 isn't 0, as we've seen so many times in Magic.
Yeah. This might show the difference here between kind of the Breach deck and the Surveillance Camera deck, though, right? Is that with the Breach deck, you just need all the pieces and it all goes. But without a skateboard to give Emery haste, we might be a turn. We need to find some answers this turn to combo off next turn. It's not going to be just so clean as we now see Krang, your favorite guy.
Yeah, and I think that's a top deck Krang, which means 4 cards for Dykeman plus the drone. That's pretty good, even if you just hit 4 lands, and we did not hit 4 lands.
No, looking like we got quite a few spells off of that. I think we had 1 card, but those 3, I mean, in addition to that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 4 creature. 12 is my count.
Yeah.
That's a big brain.
Mm-hmm. And you see it in his art too. He's got his drills up. He's excited. He's ready to pop off. And Dykeman probably feels the same way. And drawing this engineered explosive, I wonder if this allows him to present lethal. He could play the explosives and pop it. Although maybe he named explosives on the needle too. That's something that would make some out of sense, right? Just be like, hey, I've got all these 1/1s. I don't know if your deck plays that or not. It's pretty easy to play in your Urza deck. But it does look like we'd have lethal if the EE was there. And we went for it.
Yeah, but it looks like we're just going for the all-in attack. Let's saying slow down. Hold up. Before everybody gets in the pool.
All right. Surveillance Cam taps down that creature. I talked about this, at the beginning of this match, right? Getting these little points of value out of your Surveillance Cams is gonna, I think, make or break this deck for a lot of players. It is not an inherently strong card on its own. You need to kind of game.
Yeah, so looks we're tapping the Pinnacle Emissary. Still a lethal attack in the air. Oh, the Grinding Station. I guess this must say the Grinding Station might not be named. Because the Grinding Station would be how we live through this combat. So maybe it is engineered explosives. That could very well be it.
Yeah, it's the thing that makes the most sense to me, because otherwise, Dykeman did have that lethal line with the EE4-1, right? And I saw him flick the card to the front of his hand, so he was clearly thinking about it a little bit. All right, and I mean, Pierre down to 2, Station killing the Haywire Might like you had talked about. Pretty big here. So if we had Skateboard or Emery in hand, I think we'd be able to win because you can sack the Mox for part of this combo. I talked about it being Amber last time when explaining, but either Mox can do it as long as your Mox is turned online, which can be somewhat awkward with this deck when it is Opal, right?
Yeah, cycling through artifacts for sure, but we need to have the exact perfect combination. Is okay. So Dykeman deciding, let me play my own explosives, play another opal, just let me get as many of these tokens out as I can in case something crazy happens, or maybe in case draw another Krang, right? Trying to get as much out of that next draw as you can.
Okay, well, it looks like EE wasn't named. Does Dykeman? Oh, and he played the EM2 and popped it. Yeah. This is a pre-recorded match, so we cannot fix this Mox Opal situation, but it looks like we don't need to fix the situation, as Pierre's just going to pick the cards up. Can't win from here.
Yeah, so it looks like we are going into a third game here in Modern. Really, really exciting to see both decks kind of doing what they want to do in this match so far, right? The Affinity deck just saying, okay, let me dump everything I've got, and can you beat taking 5 a turn? Can you beat me putting some speed bumps away and doing that versus kind of the overpowering combo finish of the Grinding Station deck? What are you thinking here as we see the Grinding Station deck having the play for game 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think play matters a ton. The biggest thing I'm interested in is, will Dykeman keep a hand like we saw in that game, right? It ended up going across the finish line. We had a bit of a stumble from Pierre, but we do have some really strong hate artifacts in our deck here. So I'm curious to see if we're going to mulligan and try and get to those, or we're going to try and make this game a race. Because like we talked about, with this deck, it requires a bit more setup than Underworld Breach, right? With Underworld Breach, you have A plus B plus C, you're dead. This deck, you need to have the Emery or the Skateboard to get the Emery haste already, and it requires a little bit more. You get the Mox opening to make sure you have enough artifacts to always have the Mox on, or otherwise it can get a little tricky, especially with Disruption. So I'm curious to see how these games go. But I think if Pierre can present either a super fast combo or that sort of pinch that we saw in game number 1 of here's a little bit of value, here's a little bit of combo. Even with your fast start, you kind of need to have a lot of it in order to stop all angles. That's what I'm really looking for into game number 3, which I believe our players are ready for. So let's head on down and see that in action.
Man, I just hope I get to see another big Krang.
Krang's nice. The Krang and the Emissary, and then also the fact that it gives you those cards. We always talk about that. It's, I think, really underappreciated how much Krang is just large. Like you mentioned last time, he didn't get combat, but he was a 12-4. Imagine Skateboard's on the board, right? Dykeman's deck plays Skateboard. That's a very easy thing to sort of have. And then you nug your opponent for even, let's say, 8 or 9 points of damage. It doesn't need to be absolutely insane, right? That's enough to really swing games. It's like a mini Capican here.
You think Krang can do a kickflip?
Oh, definitely. He's so smart, I assume. He's a brain only. It'd be really awkward if he was like a dumb character.
It would be pretty awkward. Although, hey, smart people can kickflip too. And I think dumb people can also kickflip. I think it's just a matter of putting in the time and skill. As we see, Pierre starting with bobbling Dykeman, playing another bobble, cracking a fetch land, and then playing Vexing Bauble. Vexing Bauble, one of the cards that the Affinity deck, I imagine, hates to see.
Yeah, this card is a haymaker against these Affinity decks. They do have plenty of spells. It's not like it's all zeros, but like we saw, you are trying to abuse zeros a lot. So Vexing Bauble, turning off, your opponent's deck that has Mimnites and stuff like that, has these Tormod's Crypts. It's pretty powerful. We can get through it, We have some ways to kill it. We can Urza Saga to search for our Tormod's Crypt. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a card that's going to really slow this game down. And I think this favors Pierre a lot.
Yeah, I mean, being able to effectively say, let's hold off on you getting to dump your hand until I'm ready with this bauble. And as you see these Mishra's baubles just getting cycled through, in that first game, we kind of saw those slow, maybe not slower, but those more expensive cards doing a lot of work, as we see in Urza Saga here and a Malevolent Rumble. Like giving that setup time to Pierre is huge.
Speaking of huge, Grayson Nemesis won the standard game, so this is the deciding match for our round number 2 feature match here. Whoever wins this game is winning it for their team. Malevolent Rumble, we saw in game 1, did a great job of letting Pierre find the pieces he needs to present a multi-axis plan, and seems to be doing the same here in game number 2. Tamio looks to be the discussion point between that and the Spell Bomb there of the Aether variety.
Yeah, choosing that Tamio over the Aether Spellbomb kind of makes sense, given that Steven Dykman has no creatures to speak of yet. We do see that. I can see a Krang sneaking, hanging out there. We've got a Galvanic Blast being thrown at the spawn. Try to slow this game down a little bit more. Interesting to see what Dykman's going to follow up with here.
Yeah, and that speaks. Yeah, I was gonna say Dykman must be tight on mana, or think that Pierre is and he wants to sort of fire the land. But yeah, we see a draw pass. You have this Mox Opal in hand. These cards are great. You have these fast starts, not when Bobble's on the other side of the table. And this is also why sometimes you see these Izzet Affinity decks have Bobble in their own deck, because in the mirror it can be so backbreaking. And then you just pop it when you're ready to go, right? Ideally, you play everything then it, but sometimes you just throw down turn 1 on the play and your opponent doesn't get to play the game.
Yeah, and Pierre, I mean, has a lot of decisions in front of him. Looks like we're playing our third land here. We saw another Urza Saga in hand being thought about, probably consulting with his teammates. Now he's the last match, the decider here. All that pressure on everyone, getting an island. Yeah, giving the option to maybe just use the Saga, get some constructs going, put on pressure that way. We'll have to see what comes. If you're Dykman, what are you thinking? Like, what are the cards you're looking for to try to get?
I mean, E on 1 is a big one, right? That can get around this. Into the Flood Maw is a card that you see in these decks sometimes, and things of that nature. But honestly, like, you really wanted to have like Urza Saga to go search up some stuff and get underneath it, or just be able to maybe like play an Emry normal. It is a weirdly hard card for you to beat. You just don't play a lot of Artifact Hate the same way other people do.
Yeah, and we see another Galvanic Blast being a contribution here to the game as we're resolving the third chapter of Urza's Saga, getting a Mox into play. Obviously not affected by Vexing Baubles. It's not cast. Another Urza Saga coming down, and that Tameo that we knew about from the 11 Rumble. So really starting to build that. But okay, Steven with his own Urza Saga, let's bring back a bit, has an Engineered Explosives on 1 here, an answer to the Bauble and to the Tameo. And I know you had that in the hand last turn. Why would
it
he
might
hold
be
on to
like
that?
one to respect Pierre having Pithing Needle, right? The Saga was about to crack. This is one of those moments once again where the different deck lists, if Pierre has Needle and you name Needle, Dykman might just be out of cards. So didn't want anything in that sort of vein to answer the E. Another sort of situation could be like, we saw Into the Flood Maw in game number 1 from Pierre's in game number 2. So like that bouncing the Engineered Explosives when you're stuck on mana is actually pretty brutal. So maybe Dykman hoping to kind of play and crack in the same turn, but now there's so much pressure on him that he just sort of has to run it out now. I think it makes a bit of sense, even if it is a little weird and like probably very debatable. This is a play I could imagine our group chat going crazy about for a couple hours,
Yeah, definitely seems like, I mean, I'm inclined to say it's a pretty heads up play. Thinking about the Pithing Needle there, like if that Engineered Explosive is the only answer he reasonably has this Vexing Bauble, I mean, you have to make the whole game about it. Speaking about things the whole game's about, Urza back on the table here. I'm forever an optimist, but if I'm Dykman's teammates, I'm maybe hoping and praying that the next card is, I don't know what, but it better be good.
Yeah, it's a really tough spot to get out of this, right? And we talked about before, like how Pierre, like maybe one of the best positions he could be in outside of just winning the game on turn 2 or whatever, is sort of having this, right? Look at all this pressure I have. Look at all this minor amount of disruption I have. You have to stop this while I work towards the combo. And you don't even know if I'm going to ever actually care about the combo, right? And that's a lot of the time. As we do see here, Urza as well, letting the Vexing Bauble pop off with another artifact there. And so now it doesn't get picked up by the EE. So it's like Dykman had to do this. He gets to play a lot of cards, but it's not like the best exchange ever here. I think this is a real advantage of Pierre's deck, is going to be a better Vexing Bauble deck to fight the pseudo Mox Opal mirrors.
Yeah. Seeing the potency of that one it really has forced so much of Dykman's hand, as he doesn't really have an option other than to get this Vexing Ball off the table and start doing something. This Urza presenting not only so much pressure in terms of just spinning and generating so much mana, but also that construct. Like it's only a 15, and so if we're sitting around waiting for this game to happen, I mean it's going to happen to us. So starting to see though, right, holding on to all these cards, something is going to happen from Dyke, right? His hand he kept. He's got all those cards still.
Yeah.
They got Galvanic Blasts. So we see our man Krang hanging out, waiting in the wings. As we have Memnite, Mox Opal, and Mishra's Bubble. Just thinking through, it looks like the whole seems turn, maybe another Opal in hand.
Yeah, and I mean, you're saying it. We had all those cards. This would have been incredible if Dykeman had been on the play too, right? Like, would have shown why Bobble could be a little bit of a liability in some regards too. But he has to get something down and like get traction going, because I mean, these Urza constructs, they're not the biggest in the world right now, but like, I don't know, man. They're 4/4. Saga's about to pop. You can make a construct. Now they're 5/5s. You get something. They're 6/6s. If it's skateboard, you can tap the skateboard with Urza to equip it to something. That's lethal. So Dykeman does need to put up some pressure here, and some defense to stop this pressure.
Yeah, Memnite alone, especially if skateboard makes or just a surveillance camera, not going to do it alone. So let's see what we see here from the draw step into the Saga trigger.
Yeah, it's surveillance camera. They're tapping down. This and skateboard are really showing how annoying just randomly having tapping can be, right? Just like, oh, I thought I was going to chump block, or oh, I thought I'd have this mana. Now suddenly I don't. So yeah, we're counting here just how big it is. And if skateboard's in hand, then we play it. We just search up any artifact. It's a mana rock thanks to Urza. If it's in our deck, we get it. This looks to be lethal unless Dykeman has some sort of solitude type card or a Galvanic Blast, but he doesn't seem to have it.
Yeah, looking like that is going to do it. That skateboard, in fact, making those constructs, which also, if Urza can do a kickflip, I imagine the constructs can too. A kick flipping all the way through to victory. Here, taking down that Is It team that we saw in round one.
Yeah, it was Ollie on the back of Pierre there, and the skateboard got him across the finish line. So it was pretty awesome to see that. But we are going to get into our round number 3 that has already started, and we're going to be bringing it to you here in just a few minutes. We're going to get an interview with our winners there, and we'll be back in just 5 minutes. See you soon. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NRG series, Team 10K in Elmhurst, Illinois. I'm Mason Clark, joined by Abe Stein. We've seen 2 rounds of Magic. We had a little standard, a little modern, and a lot of fun. But now it's time for everyone's favorite Abe, Legacy. But before we do that, let's talk about some of our upcoming events, including Champs, as that's what our players are battling out for here. Consistent results on the NRG series. We'll get you to our end of the year Champs event. Here, though, we're talking about our Magic Online event, April 26th, $2,500 in prizes. We've teamed up with Daybreak Games to bring you all Magic the Gathering events from your home with the NRG series. Winning one of these will get you to Champs. That's, a 24-person, $35,000 PTQ. That's right. You win that tournament. Not only are you winning a huge chunk of change, you're also getting an invite to the following Pro Tour. Super exciting. We love to see that every year happen. Meanwhile, after that, our next in-person paper event is going to be May 8th through the 10th in Indianapolis. That's right. We're doing Magic the Gathering as always. We're doing Riftbound as the new always. Fresh and Blood, Lorcana, One Piece, Digimon. Come on out. We'd love to see you here. We are really expanding and adding so many more awesome card games to the series here. So consider coming out and getting some Magic action along with some other card game action. And we'd love to see you. And we'll be streaming those events here as well on twitch.tv/NRG series. Follow if you haven't already. Let's head down to our feature match area. I can't wait to see some Legacy action. Legacy is in a wild spot, Abe. There's a lot going on, and that's no different now.
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool to round out. I mean, the coolest thing about a team event is just the breadth of what you get to do and preparing for so many different formats. And even as a member of a team, like thinking about all these plays and helping your teammates in all these spots across formats. So seeing the full breadth of what the tournament brought to offers, we have what looks like we're gonna have an Affinity deck against a blue-white Philia kind of mid-range strategy. How much Legacy have you been playing recently, Mason?
I haven't played as much, but like I mentioned at the top of the show, I commentated the 4 Seasons Legacy event the other day with Harain, a Chicago local who I believe is battling it out here this weekend. And it was really exciting to see just how different, some of these decks look while also being so familiar. A lot of my Legacy heyday, I would say, is like 2014 to 2018, 19, and then doing some local stuff. There's some stuff in Alabama, which is pretty close to me. There's some stuff local in Nashville that I tried to get out to when I can. So, the format is different, but still has a lot of similar things. And a try and true here is turn 2 Wasteland your only land.
Yes. The Affinity player starting out, Alex, with a Urza Saga getting wastelanded, now a Chalice of the Void on 1. So yeah, a lot of the classics being thrown around here. Some things never change about Legacy as a Force of Will. I mean, really, it's every iconic play you can think of just happening here in the first 2 turns. Force of Will pitching Quantum Riddler on this Chalice. Force of Will pitching Pinnacle Emissary right back at it. So said no 1-drops. I'm willing to spend my whole hand on it. No 1-drops. And Kevin says no lands. So how about Wasteland your Ancient Tomb? We're a lot of saying no happens in Legacy.
Yeah. It's funny, right? Because people do, I think, the common misconception is people are dying on turn like 1 and 2. And, that happens on occasion, don't get me wrong. But I would say much more often games go longer than standard games do, right? I think Modern's much more like this than Legacy is. There are just so many powerful cards that say no.
Yeah, absolutely. If you see Pinnacle Emissary from, card might recognized from Dykeman's deck just last round, as being a part of the Affinity deck there, just getting that 1 drone, Nurse's Bauble. Stoneforge Mystic coming down from Kevin. Probably got a few good options here.
The Meteor Sword. So this is one of the big things that I learned from Harain and the Legacy over there in Europe, Abe. Cauldron Complete is out of fashion. It's too bad in Legacy is what I've been told. It's not good enough. So Meteor Sword has kind of replaced it as this removal spell from the Avatar set, which now you're Stoneforge Mystic, and it's like a reasonable-ish equipment, whatever games go long. But it's just a kill spell. Now your Stoneforge Mystic's just a better value card, which matters a lot with Felia as well, flickering this Meteor Sword.
Yes. And also, I mean, an answer to that Chalice of the Void, right? Or I guess really anything. But Stoneforge Mystic being a threat that also does that, also can get that answer. Yeah, Cauldron Complete. See you next time. And of course, I mean, we talked about it already a little bit, but Could also just blow up Alex's land, right?
Yeah.
Just blow up Highlands.
We did see at that other tournament sort of like come into play, blow up a land, flicker, blow up a land, and I was
Lands and especially some of his flawless victories over the years, just blowing up lands is sometimes what it's about. As we're gonna see what putting in this meteor sword, what we're going after, and it is indeed island. So
we're just gonna stone rain each other.
we know what we're about.
Oh my goodness, it's going down there, and we're joking about it. It is pretty powerful just to have this in combination with your Stoneforge Mystic, and if you ever get Felia, right, suddenly your Felia is attacking and blowing up once again. Even just those lands, if they're behind enough for the Felia to be attacking freely, it just kind of actually locks up games incredibly quickly while being kind of a catch-all.
Yeah, and also, I mean, showing just how much this game has kind of ground to a halt by slowing down Alex with a lot of this mana disruption, taking care of that Urza's Saga, keeping him off of maybe 2 or 3 mana at a time, preventing Emissary from putting out more threats than just this one drone, really having a lot of time to work with, set up a game plan, and by denying mana, preventing that time from being spent on the other end as Emery gets forceful pitching another Quantum Riddler.
Okay. Quantum Riddler, a card that we've just seen sort of pop up in every format. It is very, very good in Legacy, where when you force run low on cards, right, and then just recoups you. And speaking of cards that are good when you run low on cards, Murktide Regent's been doing that in Legacy since its release.
Yes, so Murktide Regent now a 5/5. This 1/1 drone, not really much of a problem anymore, as even the Stoneforge Mystic is going to be able to race it.
That's true.
On the ground now. But enough of those artifacts together, making Kappa Cannoneer so pretty serious threat. After using that Emery to bait out the Force of Will, now we've got a race in our hand, right? We've got these more serious threats. You mentioned, right? It's not about ending the game super quickly. It's that you fight over these denial inches to get to these points, as the sword is just getting equipped to the region.
Yeah,
we're using the whole buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, attack you for 8 is massive, right? And you have Stoneforge Mystic that can block as long as an artifact doesn't enter on Kappa. So you got that going for you.
Yeah, and also this Ancient Tomb, right? This Murktide Regent just presenting lethal if that drone token is moved out of the way here. But Kappa Cannoneer growing in its own right to this Mox Opal. Looks like we're trying to figure out exactly what we want to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot with the Chalice on 1. There's no normal spell that can be played, but there's lots of weird spells that can come up. Also, checking the Meteor Sword, if it equipped to the Stoneforge, would that have been weirdly lethal, right? That's something you have to think about. I think Alexander's the only other card in hand is a Kappa Cannoneer, so there might be some amount of math on can I survive and play another Kappa and then maybe go the distance? Pinnacle Emissary. Okay. That makes sense.
Pinnacle Emissary, but Daze being cast here. Returning a land, I guess paying with that floating mana from the Ancient Tomb.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin could have grabbed a Surveil land there, but would also have 1 less mana for this turn. I think Kevin just thought that Daze might have been lethal. And, we talked about Kevin's in a great spot. He might be in trouble here, right? That Kappa Cannoneer is going to most likely be unblockable next turn. Kevin's life total is not big enough to handle that. So he needs to have a really good draw here.
And let's see, it's another Stoneforge Mystic.
Oh.
Yeah, he's got 2 Meteor Swords.